There's hundreds of thousands of these permutations. What we did was built this expert machine called SAM that would run all those simulations into our engine and essentially present a next best list for the financial professional. Instead of a process that was taking tens of hours, we were looking at tens of minutes to construct these financial plans.
Do you think the future of advice is more human-led, technology-led, or maybe a mix of both?
I think it has to be both. Financial professionals will be around. There's an absolute need for a very growing industry. What we're hoping is that we can continue to provide technology that will help them do a better job of engaging in those interpersonal relationships with those clients.
In your opinion, what do you think is overhyped?
I see a lot of people leveraging AI in ways that maybe shouldn't be explored in AI. We've heard of stories of people building their own financial plan, getting medical advice, legal advice. I wouldn't necessarily call it overhyped. I just call it risky. Where the true value lies is the ability to embrace AI inside of a workflow.
Welcome to another episode of Pulse Point by Synpulse. My name is Jenya Tkachenko. I'm a manager at Synpulse and also hosting for today. Today, I'm joined by Brad Joudrie from Conquest. Brad, welcome.
Thanks, Jenya. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. We're really excited to have you, and congratulations on becoming the newly minted CEO of Conquest Planning. Before we dive into your journey, your perspective, I wanted to break the ice a little bit and ask you a fun question about what is the craziest networking event you've ever been to?
So it's a great question. And we talked about a few different options, and we kind of decided on this one. The reason we decided on it is we actually don't have any interesting networking events really in the wealth management space. Specifically in Canada, I've seen some slightly interesting things in the US, but this is a bit of a call to action. A number of us were down at the Future Proof event, and there's a ton of great networking around an event like that on the beach in Miami, the beach in LA. Like, what are we doing here in Canada? Let's pick up ourselves and come up with some great event that will be really exciting for people to be a part of.
Absolutely. I will second that call to action.
I think crazy was the question, so let's make it crazy too, people.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So let's go back to the serious stuff. And once again, congratulations on your new role as CEO. Tell me a little bit about how that happened and tell me about your journey in general.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's been a few years in the making. We've built a great business here at Conquest. We just surpassed 2 million financial plans, which is pretty incredible. We just surpassed 200 employees. We now have
Congratulations.
In-house. Yeah, we've built a pretty successful and big business over here. And frankly, like, we've set up the business under the same thesis as we did day one, which was basically under the auspice of making financial advice more accessible to everyone. And we've found a way to do that at scale.
Well, that's awesome. It's great to hear. Sounds like you have your hands full. Talk to me a little bit about what Conquest does differently from all the other tools.
Yeah. And so basically what we did from day one was make the process of constructing the financial plan much more efficient. And how do we do that is reducing the amount of trial and error that existed. But there's hundreds of thousands of these permutations, and there was no kind of answer key, so to say, to the math textbook. And so what we did was built this expert machine called SAM, so our strategic advice manager, that would run all those simulations into our engine and essentially present a next best list for the financial professional or even down to the consumer. So instead of a process that was taking tens of hours, we were looking at tens of minutes to construct these financial plans, which essentially enabled us the ability not only to serve financial advisors and the end customers more quickly, but also then service our tool into individuals themselves to start uncovering paying off a student loan, trying to afford their first home as we sit here in Toronto, and that becomes a rampant problem for all of us. These types of micro journeys that will help people get into advice conversations, and then ultimately longer term journeys around things like retirement that have a longer life cycle.
So given all of that, do you think the future of advice is looking like it's going to be more human-led, technology-led, or maybe a mix of both?
Yeah, so I think it has to be both, right? And for years, there's a lot of the challenge again that existed in industry was a scale problem because of the pieces of technology that the professionals were using. They just weren't as efficient to help them run their day. They were very much operated in a vacuum. There wasn't a lot of tight integration. There was double keying we've heard of. There was challenges with getting clients into the actual technology and using the technology themselves too. And I think that's been a fundamental change in the industry. But like over the past even just 6 months, we've just seen so much innovation in the space. But we think it's imperative that these firms that are looking at leveraging these capabilities are focused on leveraging them for the right way and for the right reason, and understand the actual technology that they're using. These things need to be auditable and traceable. You need to actually understand the inputs and the outputs that are coming from them. We're looking at leveraging a lot of AI within our own capability and technology to make the workflow and process around delivering financial advice more efficient. But the engine needs to be consistent. It needs to be deterministic. The financial professional needs to know why the answer is coming from where the answer is coming from. And the client who's receiving the advice needs that sort of safety and security as well.
With the overabundance of tools and vendors available for the average consumer, do you think that we might be overestimating the level of advice that people are requiring?
Yeah, I actually would say no. I don't think we're overestimating it. And the reason I say that, and what we've seen over the past couple of years, is that people are defining what they need. And even, I'll give a couple examples. I work with a number of the banks here in Canada. In their direct investing channels, they have clients that sit in the very, very, very ultra high net worth book of their business, and they have clients that sit in the retail banking book of their business, clients that are looking to pay off a student loan or pay down buy a first house. And then clients that are looking to diversify their investment strategy and use direct investing and use technology to embrace. So I actually don't think the industry is going to. Well, I think the industry could create challenges by segmenting their clients and being focused on only giving certain pieces of technology to certain segments. I think what we need to do as an industry is allow the clients to essentially self-service their way through adopting pieces of technology that they're going to be comfortable with and they're going to want within their own life cycle within these financial institutions.
And what do you think is the difference between not just people in terms of net worth, but let's talk about the generational gap, right? So what do you think that these tools might be accommodating differently to, let's say, an older high net worth individual versus somebody who's, for example, looking to buy their next new house in Toronto? Sure.
So I think just generally, if we look at financial services as a service in its name, it like any service or any sort of product out there, the buyer is now becoming more intelligent. There's more information and research out there. There's more technology and tools like, AI that people can go and do the research they need to identify 80% of what they need before they actually engage in the process. And so I think that's what we need to arm ourselves with as an industry, is understanding that buyer is becoming more intelligent. That buyer could be younger. That buyer could actually be, again, older. They just, have better adopted technology in their own life. My parents use a lot of streaming services today. They don't use Uber very much, and that's just kind of a trust issue. And that's what I think we see in terms of evolution of people's engagement. I've seen many out there and friends' grandparents that have used Uber and adopted these services because it's made them, more efficient or they've been very comfortable with the service being offered. So I do think that there's differences from a generational perspective, but what I will say consistently is that people across every wealth segment are more educated as they come into the engagements now. And so as much as the financial advisor will continue to be the expert and financial advisors will continue to lead this industry, we need to know as an industry that the buyer will come in or the end customer will come in more educated because of technology available to them.
Technology available to them, more educated, and also more accessible advice is becoming, right? So that means that firms are going to need to figure out how to scale more quickly.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the main challenges with that as it stands today?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, what's been exciting for me over the last couple of years is I've seen firms want to lead with advice-based conversations, and that's really through any sort of wealth segment we're dealing with. We launched a pretty exciting prospect engagement tool with one of the big 5 banks here in Canada last year. They've done extremely well with it, but I think it's really been exciting that these firms have started to lead with advice-based conversations, and I think it's great for an industry that that's been asking for it. I think the people have underestimated the value of advice for a long time, and I think that there's really a light shone on it right now, especially with the introduction of different capabilities from an AI perspective and other levels of intelligence that people have access to. People want to be focused on long-term financial success and long-term financial journeys, and that's what advice is really based around. Whether that advice be something that's bite-sized and achievable, or whether that advice be something that's macro in terms of handling a retirement goal, an estate, a trust that might be running out for generations. So first and foremost, excited that the industry is moving in this direction. In terms of how do we caution them to scale properly, going back to something I said earlier, I think what's important is as an industry, we need to understand where these answers are coming from. There was Michael Kitces did a look at I think it was the Anthropic Wealth plugin, and Anthropic will say they haven't built a financial planning engine, but they do have the ability to start to poke around with financial advice within their engine. And Michael Kitces did some work up in it, and I think over 80% of the answers weren't necessarily correct. Whether they were completely wrong or not, I'm not sure, but the advice wasn't strong. And I think part of it is the generative nature of the AI platforms, and what's important for our industry, again, is providing consistency in the actual advice being received. We want to make sure there's deterministic engines. Essentially what that means is that there's repeatable results. If you and I build a financial plan on the same day, trying to achieve the same thing, and we had the same starting place, we should get the same math. And so these results being deterministic are important. And then the other big thing is auditability and traceability. I see a lot of firms looking to embed and embrace AI, and I think that's great. Let's let the AI be the workflow around the experience to make those experiences much better, more efficient, and then ultimately drive something that both the client and financial professional can engage with, in the same way.
So, want to double click a little bit into AI. Of course, it's a very relevant current topic at the moment. In your opinion, what do you think is overhyped, and where do you think we're actually seeing true value?
Yeah, so I think I don't know if overhype is the word I'd use, but I would say that I see a lot of people leveraging AI in ways to really explore things that maybe shouldn't be explored in AI. So we've heard of stories of again, people building their own financial plan or trying to. We've heard of people getting medical advice, legal advice. Like, these are things that require professional opinion. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it overhyped. I just call it risky. And then the other side of the coin you talked about was...
The other side of the coin is where it's overhyped and where we're actually seeing true value.
Oh, yes, true value. So I think where the true value lies is the ability to embrace AI, again, inside of a workflow. We're spending a lot of time with our clients as they go on their own agentic journey. So a lot of large financial institutions, a lot of RIAs are starting to build agents around their business, and those agents are helping their customers interact with their platform. They're helping their advisors interact with their platform. They're helping with workflow. They're helping with efficiencies, marketing. There's a whole swath of things that these agents are doing. And so one of the things I think that we see a lot of value in is what are called MCPs, or model context protocols. Essentially what it means is a connector. So it allows you, through logic and through clean code, to essentially have the ability to connect a service like Conquest into that agent, so that agent is powered by an engine that is deterministic, repeatable, and consistent. So you know that where the advice is coming from, where the answer key is, so to say, at the back of the math textbook, and then that plan's been created in Conquest, and it continues to live until the next engagement. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of value in terms of how organizations are investing in agents and wanting to bring value ultimately to their customers and financial professionals or employees.
And given that AI has helped to facilitate many parts of the advisor's role, do you think that there is potential risk for obsolescence?
Zero. I think, it's very important to understand the role of human within this experience. Peter from Anthropic went on stage at Future Proof. I was there in Miami, and he talked about the fact that and there was buzz, right? It was like, hey, Anthropic's, bringing out this wealth plugin. Advisors, are we going away? Like, what's going on? And he was on stage basically saying the opposite, saying exactly what I just said, which is that financial professionals will be around. There's an absolute need for a very growing industry. And what we're hoping is that we, as technologists within this industry and servants to this industry can continue to provide technology that will help them do a better job of engaging in those interpersonal relationships with those clients to help them feel comfort, guidance, support through their life journey while leveraging great technology at the same time.
So on the topic of data consistency, data clarity, data integrity, I know that many firms have been trying to solve those issues similarly to yours. And how are you doing that specifically?
Yeah, so data is always a challenge if it's unclean or inconsistent. I think what we want to do is enable a number of very efficient ways of getting data into our platform so that you can ultimately get to the data required to start building the financial advice, and then the financial advice to be built in a consistent way, as I mentioned, in that auditable, traceable engine. So there's a few ways. Number one, we support aggregation within our service. So whether it be open banking or open data, the ability to take data and consistently receive it from other financial institutions through the resource of an aggregator, like a Plaid, like a Yodlee, like a Flinks here in Canada, to connect that data in and get access to current data around financial accounts and balances and things of that nature. That's part of the service that we make available to our customers. We also provide a few other ways to support data into the system. I would say the one and most interesting one recently that we've launched, which we launched in April, so kind of live when we're recording this podcast, is the ability to take unstructured data and then synthesize that unstructured data through an LLM right into Conquest. So essentially what we've done is being able to allow individuals to take a financial statement, an old financial plan, an email or a note that was written from from an individual to a financial advisor, allow them to load it in the system. We've created this schema to essentially take that data, place it into Conquest, and have pre-constructed financial plans. So we've looked to solve this problem in a few different ways.
On the topic of human-led versus technology-led advice, and given that we just talked about how there's so many different angles to all types of different data being aggregated to be able to provide consistent and repeatable advice, do you think that human judgment or algorithms are more important and is ever going to come out on top, or do you think that they are complementary to one another?
1,000% complementary, right? I think for years, whether it be the first adoption of computers and remotes for a television, like I'll go way back, right? Like, why did the remote become a thing for a television? Because people didn't want to get up and turn the channel anymore. But it still required a human to actually press the button and change the channel and pick what show they wanted to watch, right? So I think it is a convergence of people and technology, and I think as an industry we're going to see the evolution of this. I go back to what we were talking about with where firms are investing, and I think seeing firms stand up these agentic journeys, which are going to make the experiences much better for clients, allow them to leverage a more intelligent interface that's powered by pieces of technology like Conquest that actually have power behind it. Is exciting because I think it's giving people in the palm of their hand access to the questions that they want answered. But they may also want to make a phone call at one point, right? You get to a point and you're like, wow, I've learned a ton, but wouldn't I want, my professional and my expert to be available for me to call and ask this question? I work with a financial advisor today. He's done some amazing stuff for me. We were fortunate enough to have our Series B last year. And build our business and get some great investors. But my first phone call was to my financial advisor and said, hey, this stuff is going on and I want you to think about this with me. And he made a great decision. He frankly made a decision I would have likely made different. But he coached me through it and it was the right call. So it's great to have that resource because there is so much optionality and there is so much intelligence, but it is helpful at a point to be able to make that phone call and even as a point of validation.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of curiosity, do you think there are instances where humans will trust technology more than human-led advice?
I think humans will trust the technology when they use the technology. And I think the biggest trusters of the technology in our industry need to be the financial professionals, because I think if they understand it and leverage the technology as experts, far beyond what their end clients are, then those end clients are still going to see them as experts. They're still going to want to come to them. So I think it's very important for financial professionals to really understand the types of technology that their potential customers or today customers today are leveraging and using, because the advisor ultimately needs to be an expert in those technologies too, to understand how to be a resource and support that engagement.
Absolutely. So not everything is as black and white as
Correct.
We sometimes hear it might be on the internet.
You got it. Yeah.
So just to pivot away a little bit from AI and just to zoom out, even go more broadly, where do you think generally companies similar to yours or even in the industry are underinvesting?
So I think what we can't forget in this time, with how amazing the innovation in technology is, we can't underinvest in our people. We have a tremendous amount of great thought leadership and resource within organizations like Conquest, and we need to help them, take the next step in their evolution and understanding of technology, so that we can engage and support and build, continued better business, build great and continued new technology, but at the same time realize the human capital we have in front of us, all of us. This goes for Conquest. This goes for financial advisors that employ a bunch of people outside of themselves and other advisors within the firms, whether it be assistants or paraplanners or some sort of marketing. Like we need to remember that we have a tremendous amount of human capital, and we need to help that human capital grow and leverage tools to drive more efficiency and effectiveness. I think that's the biggest risk as we heavily invest in technology and engage in technology, is that we lose the desire to continue to invest in people. And I feel that's fundamental for the future.
Investing in people, since we just determined that humans are not going away, is probably one of the most fundamental things you can do to continue making sure that this industry is successful.
Correct. Yeah.
So on the topic of future outlook and what you're excited about, what is something that you are looking forward to trend-wise, let's say over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, the biggest change that I've seen, again, we talked a little bit about this in the podcast over the past couple of years, besides AI, let's keep AI out of it for a minute, is the adoption of people wanting to lead with advice-based conversations. And I think that's a true and meaningful impact to this industry if folks continue to focus in that direction. Individuals, whether, again, it be a bite-sized question they're looking to answer around paying off a student loan, trying to buy a first home, these are meaningful and impactful things that will change someone's life. And when I say life, I mean their whole financial life, the full trajectory of their future. And so I think the faster we can all mobilize ourselves in this direction, the better ultimately for financial literacy and overall financial well-being, regardless of where we're playing, whether it be in Canada, the US, the UK, really anywhere around the world. And so with the adoption of such great technology, small plug for Conquest, but adopting the future of agents and supporting AI and the delivery of workflow. We have so much technology in front of us that this is more achievable than it ever has been before. And we can achieve it at scale, which really goes back to the thesis we built from day one, which was democratizing access to financial advice. And so it's really exciting for me to be able to sit here and think about how close we are to that level of engagement, and think ultimately about, the number of families we're able to help in the process be financially well. And, as the next 2-3 years look, with so much technology in front of us and support for those processes, I really think we can continue to lean into those advice-based relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see where you take it to the next level and maybe see you at our new event.
I can't wait. We'll work on planning it shortly after this airs.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, Jenya.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.